Hi everybody, it's Preston from Preston's 8 Legs. Today I'm going to be going over molts and how tarantulas grow. To start off here, I have a couple of molts from the tarantulas that I have. First off here is a molt of cinnamon. Now as you guys can see, it's kind of scrunched up there and not necessarily naturally looking. And the reason for that is when tarantulas molt, underneath the old exoskeleton is a very moist and kind of soft exoskeleton. That's the new exoskeleton that has to grow. And then they shed this old exoskeleton. But when they do, they lay on their backs and they push off this old exoskeleton and they kind of lose all the structure inside of the old one here, and it kind of ends up bunching up. And then because there's nothing inside of this, basically, it actually dries up. As you guys maybe hear, I'll see if I can bring it close and you guys can maybe hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's actually kind of crunchy. And the reason why is they just kind of dry out. There's no moisture in them, and it's just a second skin that's no longer there. Oh, the leg fell off. Again, this is not a live tarantula. This is just a exoskeleton of a tarantula that is still alive. This is just what they used to be, and the size used to be, and now they are bigger. So as you guys can see here, it has all the legs, well, except for the one that fell off, but what they do is when they molt, they shed the whole entire body. Their legs, their abdomen, their top part, the bottom part, everything. Every piece of the leg, their fangs, their chelicerae, which is the part of their mouth that the fangs are connected to. They shed everything, and everything is new. So I'll show this guys a little bit up close here. So you guys can kind of see this is actually the bottom part of a tarantula right there. And then these are the legs, and you guys can see this little bright orange area here. That is actually the area, oh, come on, focus. That is the area that is just below the mouth on the underside of the tarantula. That's right underneath where the mouth goes. So it basically they would actually look like this if the legs went all scrunched up. This would be the right way that they'd be laying. But it just, like I said, it gets dry and then it scrunches up. Now here, this is part of the same molt, but most of the time this will come off separately. And this is the top of the tarantula's head, and also the top of the abdomen, that little dangly part there. That is the top of the abdomen of the tarantula. So you guys can see here, let me see if make sure it'll focus here. You guys can see right about there, that little black dot, that's actually the tarantula's eyes. Now that's not actually their eyes, that's just a shell of the eyes that they have now. But that's where the tarantula's eyes are. They don't have it like a lot of spiders where they're spread out on the front of their head, on top of their head. A lot of tarantula's eyes are just grouped in one giant grouping, or not really giant, actually small grouping on the top of their head. And that's the thing about tarantulas is that most of them are actually, they're not blind, but they don't see a whole lot. They actually feel a lot more than they see. That's different though when it comes to other spiders like the jumping spiders or a regular type of spider that you might see in your house. A lot of times they will have better eyesight. They'll still have good sense for feel, but they'll have better eyesight. Like jumping spiders have amazing eyesight. They have some of the best eyesight of all the arachnids. So that definitely helps them, but tarantulas don't have that. They rely on their big bodies and their big legs to feel everything. Next here, I have a little tiny one that's actually all in one piece. Oh, there we go. And this used to be Julio. This was Julio's molt about a couple of molts ago, but it's one of the more intact ones here. And as you guys can see, there's a little type of things falling off. And those are just hair. Those aren't urticane hairs. Those are just the regular hairs that are on the tarantula. And as you guys can see, I'm holding this with a tong. The reason why is because I'm not necessarily afraid to touch them or anything. One, I just don't want to squash them and then have them break apart even more. And two, if there is any urticane hairs left, I just don't want to get them on my hands. That way I don't have to be itching for a couple of hours. So I'm just holding it with tongs, and one, it's easier to show to you guys. So this used to be Julio, and like I said, you can see he shed the whole entire of his body. This little part right here was the top of his head. And then it's connected to the little piece of the abdomen back there, and it wraps all the way around to the other side. And you can see all his legs, and he kind of just pops up. So next, I'll show you guys exactly what I mean when they molt and what they do and how you can tell that a tarantula is molting or that a tarantula has molted, and what to do when they are molting. Okay, guys, and to model what I was talking about is Roman. And you guys have known him if you guys have been watching the videos, and if you haven't, this is Roman, my grandma stole pork ripes. And he has just recently been rehoused into this enclosure here because he molted and outgrew his old one, and I put him in here. Well, he hasn't been in here more than 2 months now, and he's molted again. So as you guys can see right here in the lower corner, that is not actually Roman. That is his molt. Roman is actually down here in the lower corner hiding out because he's a shy guy. But that's okay. I don't blame him. But I want to show you guys here exactly what the molting process looks like from inside the closure. I don't have any footage of the actual tarantula molting in the process of molting because I try not to disturb them, and I'll go into more explanation on why I try not to disturb them when they're molting here in just a second. But I don't have any of that, but I can kind of talk you guys through it, and you guys should be able to kind of guess what I'm talking about a little bit more accurately. So here, you guys can see there's a little gray on here on the dirt here, and let me actually raise the camera up a little bit, and you guys can probably see it a little bit better. There we go. So you guys can see there is these little white pieces here. Oh, let me move the camera. There we go. Nice, you're not swaying. There's these little white patches here on this dirt that you can see. And what that is, that's webbing. That's a tarantula webbing. And the reason why that's there is because tarantulas will build a web bed when they are molting. And basically what that is just a protective layer for themselves when they're molting, so that they're not having anything move from underneath them. They're not having anything that can harm them when they are molting. They're not having anything poke them or be uncomfortable for them. They're trying to make this web bed so it's as flat and as cushy as possible for them. And the reason why is because, as you guys can maybe tell, that that is the underside of the tarantula right there. You can actually see his fangs right there. So that's the underside of the tarantula. So you guys can kind of see how it's angled. That would mean that Roman was actually on his back, and when he was pushing off his old exoskeleton, it landed just like that. So what tarantulas do when they're molting is they will flip over upside down, and then they will slowly start vibrating a little bit, but really what they're doing is they're pushing, they're vibrating and kind of shaking out of their old exoskeleton. And then as they're doing that, they'll stop, take breaks, and then they'll slowly push off this old skin. And then once they're all done, they got every single bit of themselves out of their old selves, they'll lay there for a little bit because their new exoskeleton will be very soft, it'll be very moist, and it'll be very vulnerable. So the reason why I want to talk about mainly the molting process today is because it's, in my opinion, a very important thing to know about your tarantula when you have one. Because the molting process is a very extremely, I don't want to say dangerous, but it's a very extremely stressful time for the tarantula and for you yourselves, because that's one of the most vulnerable. A tarantula that is freshly molted can die a lot quicker than a tarantula that has not molted in quite a long time because they're so soft. Tarantulas, it's an exoskeleton, and if you felt a bug before, they're pretty hard on the outside, but when they molt, they're very soft, so they can be susceptible to have a broken leg, a punctured abdomen. They're susceptible to predators, and they're susceptible to stress. And when they move And if they need to move because they get stressed out, they can actually end up hurting themselves and disforming themselves because their body may not be structurally sound yet to move. So what they'll do is they'll lay on this little web bed here until they feel strong enough that they can move, and then they'll flip back over right side up with their legs down on the ground, and then they'll kind of just stand there until they feel comfortable again. And this whole time what they're doing is they're actually drying out their new exoskeleton and hardening it up. And then when they're ready to move, they'll move a little bit, and then they'll actually, a lot of times you'll see they'll stretch out their legs from front to back really long. And the reason why is because that's when a lot of the growing happens, is they're actually stretching out their new skin so that they can actually grow and get to the size that they're wanting to be. And then they'll harden like that, because if they don't stretch, one, they may not grow properly, and two, they may harden improperly and they can have a messed up leg or a messed up abdomen if they don't stretch out properly when they're hardening. So that's the whole process of that. Now, also, when a tarantula molts, as you guys can kind of see down here, he's a little bit lighter. They'll hide out a lot because they still are. They're still very susceptible to getting injured. And another thing is when they molt, like I said, they molt every single piece of them. So that means they molt their fangs as well. And when they molt their fangs are just as soft as their new body is. So when a tarantula molts, you have to wait. It depends on the size. If you have a little tiny sling, you can wait about a week. If you have a juvenile or an adult, you may have to wait 10 to 14 days to maybe even more, depending on the size of the tarantula and how long it takes them to harden up. And the reason and how you know that they've hardened up enough is that their fangs will be black. As you guys can see with this old one, his fangs were black. But when he freshly molted, his fangs were like a pale cream color, like a more white color. And it's not hard enough. And they can't eat yet because their fangs are so soft, they may actually damage their fangs or their mouth by trying to eat a hard prey item. So you have to wait until they harden properly, and then you can feed them. Plus, another thing is when they molt, is you don't want to mess with the molt, and you don't want to mess with their enclosure very much after they molt, because like I said, it stresses them out. Plus, there's a thing that I read, I'm not entirely sure if it is true, but it seems to be, and it makes a lot of sense, that scientists have found that a lot of tarantulas will keep their molts around them for a little bit, because they'll actually use whatever vitamins and moisture that are in the molt for drinking and gaining vitamins after they freshly molt, because that is key, because it's very exhausting to do this for a tarantula. So when they have a good moisture source, they definitely need it. So I always like to keep I always give my tarantulas water, but I always also like to keep their old molt in there. That way they have that natural process in their life still. And then after that, after I know they've hardened up, then I'll go in, I'll take the lid off, I'll take the molt out, and then I won't disturb them anymore until I know that they're 100%, which they should be by then when I'm taking it out. But I always like to leave it in there because you don't want to disturb their habitat while they're hardening up. Now, Roman here has been molted for about a week and 2 days so far. So he should be good. I can't really see his fangs right now, so I'm not going to try to feed him just yet. But I am going to take the molt out, and that way you guys can get a little bit closer look of it. There we go. So here is Roman. So as you guys can see what I was talking about with his fangs, those are his fangs right there. This is the underside of Roman. And like I said, his fangs will look like that now when he's hard enough, but there will be more like a color like that right there where the tip of my finger is when he's freshly molted. And now I'll just flip him around here. And as you guys can see, this is a really cool shot right here. So you see all these holes right here? That's where his new legs were inside of his old skin here. That's basically what the inside of a tarantula looks like, that has no guts, no heart, no brain, no nothing inside of it. It just, that's what an empty tarantula looks like right there. So that's really cool because that you guys can see right where the legs go into, right where their fangs will go into. So, that's a good look at that. That's pretty much it, guys. There's not a whole lot to this. I know this is a long video. I tend to make long videos even about the simplest topics, but there's really not a whole lot that you really can do as a tarantula owner when they're molting. You just want to make sure that you don't disturb them and you let them do their thing. And then when they're ready, they'll let you know. Now, sometimes a tarantula can molt in an area where you can't access it, and that's fine. Most of the time, what a tarantula will do is when they're done with that molt, they'll kick it out of their little burrow, they'll kick it out of that hole and put it in the garbage dump, basically. And that's when it's a cue for you to come and grab it. Now, another thing I will say here, let me change the camera angle real quick. Another thing I will say about when a tarantula molts is that sometimes a tarantula can get stuck in a molt. And what that means is that when they're molting and they're trying to push out the old exoskeleton, something may not be right with the tarantula genetically, or they may not have enough moisture in their enclosure, or they may have too much moisture in the enclosure and they'll get stuck inside the old exoskeleton. When that happens, it's not a good thing, because there's not really a whole lot that we can do as humans to help the tarantula when they get stuck. Really, the best thing that you can do is, if you feel like there's not enough moisture in the enclosure, spray a little bit, not at the tarantula, but spray around the enclosure around the tarantula, and maybe they'll get enough moisture in there to help them ease off that old exoskeleton. But other than that, there's not really much you can do, because you can't grab the old exoskeleton and start pulling out the new one, because it can really hurt and damage and or kill your tarantula, and obviously you don't want that to happen. Really, the best thing is to just let the tarantula do its thing, and you hope that it is able to work itself out. I myself have had a tarantula it was my arboreal tarantula, my Caribbean versicolor. That's what it was, my Caribbean versicolor. It was just a sling. And if you guys know anything about tarantulas, you guys will know that species is very hard to keep, because they do die and pass away very young, because they just have a hard time molting and living for some reason. But I did have one as a sling, and it did molt, and it did get stuck in its molt, and it unfortunately passed away while it was molting. I tried everything I could, but it just didn't work out, and it just passed away, and that was that, and it was very sad. But as humans, there's only so much we can do, and as long as you try your best and you try everything that you can, that's as much as you can ask for. I know I don't mean to end this video on a sad note, but that's at the very worst. That's the very worst case, but you always have to plan for the very worst case. But with tarantulas, with a lot of things, just leave them alone, let them be them, and they'll be perfectly fine. So thank you guys very much again for watching. I really, really, really appreciate that you guys have been watching and enjoying these videos. I don't know if it was my last video or the video before that. I'm pretty sure it's the video of introducing you all to the tarantulas that I have. That has over 500 views now. And I know in YouTube terms that's not necessarily a lot, but to me that's a lot, and it's awesome. I'm so happy that you guys have liked them and enjoyed them. And I love reading you guys' comments. And I look forward to filming these videos. And I know sometimes I do skip a week or I skip a short, and I don't mean to, just sometimes work gets in the way, and then I just don't have time. I run out of time before I can film one in a week. But I do try to make sure that I keep to a schedule and keep a video up every Friday and a short every Tuesday. That way you guys have something to look forward to every week. Thank you guys again for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I know I say that a lot, but I want to make sure that you guys know I really appreciate it. It's not about the subscribers. It's not about the likes to me. It's not about the views to me. I'm just happy you guys are liking them and enjoying them. If you guys did enjoy the video, please do like and subscribe. It really does help. I I love seeing the comments about what you guys have to say about the tarantulas or you guys' experience with tarantulas or spiders, and I really look forward to seeing them. Thank you guys again for watching. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.